to Beyond the Raven. In this episode, we're going to be discussing elemental spirits with Lynda Quirino. A little information about Lynda. Lynda lives in Georgina, Ontario, and has been in the paranormal field for 41 years. She has experienced paranormal activity all of her life. At the age of 18, she began investigating the paranormal while in college in her hometown of Montreal and continued to research and investigate on her own until relocating to the Toronto area in 1986. From 86 to 96, she continued investigating local hauntings and paranormal issues until in 1997 she became the assistant director of the Toronto Ghost and Hauntings Research Society. Lynda left the Toronto Ghost and Hauntings Research Society in 2003 and freelanced in the field, concentrating on investigating and researching local cases. After giving a presentation on ghosts and hauntings at the local library in Georgina, Ontario, Lynda realized that the need for paranormal team was very much needed. So in 2012, she founded and is the executive director of the Georgina Paranormal Society. Lynda has been on Discovery Channel's Paranormal Survivor as one of their experts. She has also appeared on many podcasts, radio, and local television shows. She also hosts a weekly cable lifestyle show called Georgina Life. She also lectures and gives presentations on the paranormal throughout Canada. So everyone, let's welcome Miss Lynda Quirino to Beyond the Raven. We have a very special guest, Lynda Quirino. She is here. I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell a little bit about herself tonight.
Jennifer, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
I'm so pleased that you accepted my invitation. I'm so excited about tonight. There's so much I want to learn, but I'll let you continue and then we'll get into our discussion tonight.
Absolutely. Well, I'm Lynda Quirino. I'm the founder and director of the Georgina Paranormal Society. I live up here in Georgina, which is a little bit more than an hour north of Toronto, Ontario, in Canada. I was the assistant director for quite a few years at the Toronto Ghosts and Hauntings Research Society. But prior to that, I did a lot of stuff by myself. So I've been in the field for 41 years, which is kind of insane, which is probably why I think I have stock in Clairol because I got a lot of gray coming out. So
you look marvelous, honey. You look marvelous. Don't even worry about that. Hey, I colored mine so you can't see my gray.
Love it.
But no, I was so happy when you accepted my invitation. No, it took a little while to get you on, things changing and whatnot. But I think I actually first saw you when you were on Paranormal Survivor and you were talking about elementals. And elementals have been a big, not an issue, but curiosity of mine because so many people tell me so many different things. In the last couple of investigations I've actually been on, elementals were brought up. And I'm like, actually the last 3 investigations, but I'm so confused. All right. You've got supposedly you had earth, wind, fire, water, and those elementals. Then you have your Native American elementals. Let's just start from scratch. What are elemental spirits?
Well, elementals are pretty much primordial spirits. And that basically means that they've been around from day one, from when the earth was created. So they embody a lot of the attributes, and we're talking elemental spirits here. We're talking elementals. So they embody a lot of, what earth, air, fire, and water would embody. They look like fire, maybe. They look like air, maybe. They're really very basic earth spirits, and they're kind of everywhere. And so many people are really curious about them too, because a lot of paranormal people will tell you that elementals are kind of scary, and elementals can also be malevolent. And that can be true, especially if you kind of mess with them.
In what sense do you mean mess with them? It's like during an investigation. I will go into that in a minute, but what do you mean by mess with them?
Well, for example, if you enter their lair, so if we're talking, let's say, an earth elemental, they may live in a secluded area. So they might be, let's say, in a forest, or they might be where there's a lot of trees in a grove. So the elementals might be there, and those would be the earth spirits. If you're leaving stuff around, so you've decided you're going to build a campfire or you're going to do something in that particular area and you're not cleaning up, or you're disrespecting where they might be angry. They might reach out in some way to let you know that they're a little ticked off with you. But if you understand that you are in a sacred space where the earth elementals are, and you are, as I say, very respectful, then they won't bother with you. They're going to be okay. And if they do show themselves and interact with you, it'll be on a very friendly basis. So you might, let's say, smell earth. You might see a shadow moving among the trees. You might feel as if you're being watched. You might even see something. You might even see perhaps a little light in the tree. That could be them just letting you know that they know that you're there and they want you to know that they're there. But they understand you're being respectful. But if you're going to mess things up, then they might not be so nice.
So, do they take, we just since you're on the earth elemental, do they take different forms? Like you said, ball of light, shadow. They're, since they're never actually were, they're not human spirits, they're earth spirits, so they could take a form of anything.
Yes, it's pretty well understood that they're shapeshifters, so they can take on human form. Usually with earth spirits, they're green in nature. They might be a little gnarly. They might look like a tree. They might have a little bit of wrinkles. We worked on a case not too long ago where somebody who moved into a cabin in the woods was seeing this gnarly looking old man outside. And he was sort of just watching from a distance. And then they kind of ascertained that, well, maybe that might have been an elemental because they exhausted the research. There was nobody that lived there that looked like that. There was nobody that any of the distant neighbors knew in the area that looked like that. So they kind of reached out and said, do you think it might be an elemental? So we said, well, yeah, absolutely, because they do shapeshift and they do take on some of the attributes of whatever elements that they represent. So, he kind of looked gnarly, like a tree. He looked like a tree trunk, which I thought was kind of interesting. But yes, they can shapeshift.
So, in an investigation like that, so they are obviously intelligent.
Yes.
Can you try to get them? Can you communicate with them to find out if they are an elemental spirit? Do they communicate like normal, I guess, the normal hauntings and whatnot? Are you able to actually communicate with them to find out, are you an elemental? If so, what type of elemental are you? What do they?
Yeah, normally what people do to find that out is that they try to commune with whatever is there. For example, if you've got a clairvoyant on your team, they would be an excellent help to try and find out what kind of a spirit that is. So they might, let's say, if you're in a forest, they might sit down in a quiet spot by a tree, and they might try and feel what the energy is in that particular area. They also love to get gifts and presents. So, an earth spirit, you can communicate with them and find out if perhaps they're your area by offering them something. So you might, let's say, put a little plant down for them. You might spread some new earth next to the tree trunk. You might maybe give them some tobacco, something from the earth to kind of tell them that you know that they're there, and to let them know that you're not a threat to them. Because that's one thing about elementals that I've learned, is that if they feel that you're a threat to them, then they can be sometimes nasty to you because they feel that you're a threat.
Oh, so and that I guess goes for earth, wind, I mean, or fire, water, and they can all take form the same situation. They're all kind of the same, not just the earth. And now,
Exactly.
do these spirits? I mean, does it have to be in like ancient? forest or any forest or woods or and water. When I say just because we're on the earth elemental, that's the only reason why. But I guess and I have a reason for asking. Could it just be like, hey, out in my backyard? Of course, could there possibly be something
Oh
out there
yeah,
protecting?
100%.
So
um,
it doesn't have to be like ancient woods or.
no, no, absolutely not. They like to hang out in their own element. So, for example, you buy a house in the middle of the city, but you've got a great big backyard or even a little backyard,
Mhm.
and you're throwing your garbage out there, or you've decided that you're just going to dig it all up and you're going to put I don't know, you're going to put astroturf down. You might really annoy the elementals out there. We had an interesting case where we had a new subdivision that was built in our town. And we were getting a lot of people reaching out and saying, yeah, some strange things are happening on our property. And we realized that the elementals were really ticked off because they bulldozed a whole lot of. And we also have indigenous spirits around here. So we have the Chippewas of Georgina Island. We have the Ojibwe as well that are in our area and near our area. So we have a lot of native and indigenous spirits, but we have a lot of elementals, and they're kind of related in many ways. So they were getting really ticked off and they were doing things. We had a young couple who bought a home in this subdivision. This is the strangest thing. They contacted us to tell us that everything was brand new. They upgraded everything. They had no pets. They were commuters. Both of them worked in the city. And when they got home one night, there was a little fire started in the middle of their living room on their hardwood floor. Right?
Right. That's weird.
It was really strange. And we thought, well, that's strange. So we said, listen, maybe the builders got in because there might be a skeleton key or something, because that usually happens. And they said,
Mhm.
no, they changed all the locks. They're the only ones that had the key. Again, they had no pets. Nobody was able to get in. They have an alarm system. So the alarm system should have sounded if somebody were there. They did not have an internal security system, but they had an outside security system. So nobody got in the windows, nobody got in the doors. So they were kind of really perturbed by this. So I said to them, well, maybe you should set up a camera to see what's going on if it happens again. They said, well, this might have been a one-off. I don't know. It was really strange. Anyway, lo and behold, not long after, they came home and there was another little fire started in the room. So
Really?
I know it was very strange. So they bought a camera and they set it up in their living room on top of the fireplace so that it pointed down to that whole area so they could actually see it. And what was very interesting, whatever, they had no pets, nothing. When they watched the footage back, because when they got home that day, there was another fire. They thought, oh, perfect, we'll find out what happened.
Mhm.
Camera was positioned on top of the fireplace and literally fell backwards and started recording the ceiling.
No way.
And there was another fire set. So we did, I know. So what we did was we thought, okay, this, I don't know, because they're brand new subdivision. As you know, it's always the land that you have to consider when you're considering any hauntings or anything of any kind, not
Mhm.
necessarily the building. So we thought, all right, so what was on the land? Well, there were trees. There were trees, there were rocks, there were stones. Maybe we'll bring in somebody who's the area. So we actually brought in a local shaman. And these people were great because they were of no particular religious persuasion. You know how that kind of works.
Oh
No,
yeah.
they weren't Catholic, they weren't any of that. So they were very open-minded. And as soon as the shaman came into the house, basically he said, yeah, you have an elemental spirit here, a spirit of the forest who is not happy that all of this has happened, that all of its house, all of its home has been razed, and all of these people are living here. And what it was trying to do was it was trying to purify, not burn down or anything, but it was trying to purify its home and that area. And I thought that was really interesting. So that was another big lesson for us in how elementals can actually interact with us and let us know that they're unhappy. The elementals didn't create this huge, massive fire. They were
Yeah.
earth elementals, but they worked with the fire elementals to kind of purify the area and make it so that they could claim it as their own and be happier there. And it wasn't working, clearly. So the shaman suggested that they go into their yard, they go walk around their home, talk to the earth elements, apologize and say, I'm so sorry that we had to do this, to take away your home and raise all of these trees. And it's just horrendous. So what they did was they planted a little tree and a little garden. So they brought in some rocks as well. And everything's fine, which I think was just amazing. So they appeased the elementals who were clearly not too happy.
So if this is it was in a development and it
Yes.
was just this particular house. So
Yes.
why would you think it would be just that particular house and not others? Does that matter?
Well, we believe, because since then we've had a couple of other houses in that particular area reach out and say that they were having some issues as well. So this was kind of the first learning experience. This happened very shortly after those houses were built. And since then, we've heard from other people. So obviously they weren't the only ones. But you know, when you're in this this crazy field, there's so many people out there that don't want anyone to know what's happening because, of course, you know, they're going to think, well, I'm crazy. So we always talk about this particular case and about the elementals whenever we have our public meetings, because we always know that somebody there is probably going to resonate with it. You know, they're going to go, oh, that happened. That was similar. Or something happened to me. They might even live in that subdivision. But it's a really good learning experience on how they need to be appeased because they're not happy. So that was kind of cool.
That is because that is really cool because I just did an investigation on a property about 5 years old. It was just built within the last 5 years. And just one particular apartment, she's having issues, but I really don't feel like it's elemental. But that's why I was asking the questions. Could it just be one place and not the others? But you answered that question. You were saying the Native American spirits, and then you have the elementals, because I've always heard that basically elementals are Native American. Then you have all these different Native American spirits, like animal spirits, and what then they even talk about fairies and gnomes. And see, this is where I get just blows my mind. And that's where, I mean, because I don't understand. I mean, I can understand the water, fire, the basic elementals, what the earth protects the earth, water, the same situation. Now, fire, not so sure I understand the fire elemental exactly, and how would we make them mad. So,
I know, right? I
and
know.
air. So I'm not sure. Well, air pollution, but I hear more about the earth elementals than the others.
Yes, true. I think most of us hear about the earth elementals more than others. And what I wanted to say as well was you can have an elemental in a particular apartment that is a little ticked off. For example, a long time ago when I was in Montreal before I moved to another province, I dealt with a case that involved an elemental, and it happened to be a water elemental, which was kind of interesting. And like I think called the Undines, the water elementals. They have a strange name, and they look like water. They could be sort of, water spirits, mermaid like. But what they did, this particular person lived in a condominium, and they brought home a vial of water from a stream that they visited, and they were particularly drawn to this stream. And it was somewhat north, and they loved this stream. It was very calming to them, and they thought, I want to remember that, so I'm going to bring home a little vial of water so that I can put it on my bedside table. And every time I look at it, I'll remember where I went. And they were haunted by what they believed was a malevolent spirit. And it was reaching out and causing them bad dreams and horrible things like that. So when I went to see this person, one of the things that I asked them was, did you bring anything into your apartment that like recently might have
Mm.
had something attached to it? And she said, well, no, nothing, no antiques, no nothing. And I said, okay, well, did you bring anything? Did you go away? She said, well, yeah. And she showed me this vial of water and explained to me where she got it from. And then when she was explaining what this particular spirit looked like, she said it was awful. I got up to go to the bathroom, and this thing was it looked like this massive wave, like it looked like water. And I said, okay, so you
Um,
might have really annoyed the elementals by taking some of their water and bringing it back. Maybe let's look at that. So anyway, cut a long story short, she actually brought the vial back to the stream, apologized, put the water back, and said, I'm so sorry that I invaded your space, and I promise never to do that again. And that was interesting because when we're looking at water spirits tend to be those elementals that tend to come in your dreams. They tend to help you. They tend to show you things in your dreams. And when she was saying she was having bad dreams of being, like drowned and horrible, horrible things happening, that's when I realized, okay, it's got to be an elemental, has to be a water elemental. And so that was solved. So if somebody brings, let's say, a carving from a tree into their home, and that might be from a particularly special tree to a particular elemental spirit, they might start experiencing something in their home because they've kind of invaded that space.
wow, that does make sense. And you would be honestly would be very um you wouldn't know. I mean, I would have thought anything about taking the water, or even if I wanted some sand from somewhere to remember where, so you really just don't know. I mean, until something happens, unfortunately.
That's really true when you think about it. And that's part of being like a paranormal investigator. It's CSI paranormal because you just have to exhaust all the possibilities before you actually realize a little light goes on in your head and you go, oh, right. So maybe after you exhaust all of the possibilities, there's those elementals that we have to think about too.
And that's why I want to learn more, because is it can be very confusing and overwhelming,
Oh, yeah.
especially like I said, when you start getting into, I was doing a little reading, they're talking about what now are sprites, fairies, gnomes, those are considered elementals, or
Yes, as a matter of fact, the earth elementals, gnomes are what they're called officially, from what I understand. But yes, earth elementals are things like gnomes and fairies that you might see in the forest, those kinds of things. You've got the earth spirits and you have the elementals. A lot of people just group them together.
that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's okay if you do that because normally you're going to see fairies and gnomes and elves and things like that in the forest. Often you'll see them in your house too. But they do tend to kind of together. And yeah, so don't be too confused.
So basically, you're saying so elementals are what we just discussed, and these earth spirits are the gnomes, and so
Yeah,
yeah, no,
yeah, absolutely.
okay, that's where, okay, I see what you're saying now. I say so you do have those, but then you have the elementals that protect the land and whatnot, and then you have these earth spirits such as those that protect. Okay, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. But then you also have what's the deal? Like the Native American spirits. Are they like animal spirit? Are they considered elementals or Native American spirits? How do they get categorized in all this?
Yeah, those are really interesting because, as I say, over here we also have indigenous element where we live. And interesting because from what I gather after interviewing a few Indigenous people, they've told me that they kind of work together. So we have up here, we have sightings of this strange creature that we call the skinwalker. You
Oh,
probably heard about that.
that's
And it's
another episode I want to do is a skinwalker. Yes.
right. So, it was explained to us that it's basically a shapeshifter. And I don't know if you are familiar with, there's a movie out there, I think, or a series of movies with something called The Rake. And The Rake is this sort of looks like a naked man who walks around on all fours, very alien-like, large kind of hollow eyes, skitters around, looks like a naked man on all fours. We've had sightings of this thing up here. And people have been calling it a skinwalker because it looks like it's just all skin. But a skinwalker is actually an indigenous being that is kind of like almost protective, again, an elemental of the area, of the indigenous life, of the forests and trees and all of that. So it's very similar from what I can understand. I'd love to know more about it. And I think the Native Canadian, as well as the Native American skinwalkers and all, I think they're really, really similar.
Mhm.
But I think they're all interconnected because when you're talking about elementals and elemental spirits, which are primordial, I mean, they've been here since day one, they're very protective, right? So they protect the land, they protect the oceans, the waters, they protect the air that we breathe. You know, they protect all of the elements that we have in our lives. They protect them, and they balance nature. And anytime we see this kind of skinwalker dude up here, something happens. So we either have a big storm or we have something happen. So it's almost as if there's a correlation between sightings of things like that and something happening in our environment. So we're trying to look at that as a team as well, and try and figure out, okay, when sighting happened, what happened? Did we have, a hurricane? Did we have really bad lightning? Did we have floods? Did something happen in our natural environment that kind of was unbalanced? And these are warnings to us because I do believe that we can be warned by elemental spirits. And I think, we're screwing around with our environment so much that I think we're also angering a lot of the elemental spirits. And I think, you see the wildfires and things like that.
Mhm.
That's an angry elemental that's trying to tell us, wait a minute here, what are you doing? And that would be a fire elemental for sure. I mean, that's a terrifying thing, but I think that's part of it. It's a warning to us.
Wow, that just, you're talking about the fire. I don't know if you saw on what Paranormal Survivor or not Paranormal, Paranormal Caught on Camera or one of those shows. The firemen were out. There was woods fire somewhere. I don't remember if it's California, wherever. But he looked up in the tree, and it literally looked like Satan. Uh,
Absolutely.
and when you said fire elemental, I started thinking, wow, I wonder. You never know.
For
But
sure.
that's really cool. So, why would an elemental? Okay, this is one of the investigations I want to go back to, but we think there's an elemental spirit in it's really the visitor center. Um, but it's built on the land, the area is very historic. Oh, there's many battles, whatnot. Um, and we don't really know for sure, but how would you go about doing an investigation to find out and see exactly what type of elemental spirit it is and if it really is one? But why would it be inside the visitor center?
That's it. I know. Like, why are you there?
Why are you
um,
hanging out at the visitor center?
Very strange. I would look at what they're saying that it does. For example, if you're looking at, let's say, a sylph, like um, an elemental. They might be moving things around. So things might be wandering around, being moved. People might, let's say, feel their hair being moved. They might do something wind related. Also, because wind elementals or air elementals
Mhm.
can speak in your ear sometimes, and they can also influence your thoughts. You might feel differently in that particular area. You might be very emotional in that area. So that might be more like a wind elemental. It might be an air elemental. But let's say you're smelling earth, or you're feeling very heavy and it's starting to affect your digestive system and all of that. You feel kind of sick. That might be an earth elemental. So I would take a look and see what kinds of things are going on. What are people experiencing? Are they getting sick? Are they feeling a certain way? Are they overly emotional? Maybe that kind of thing. And then you'd be able to look at characteristics of the particular elemental, and then
Mhm.
kind of ascertain which one it might be.
Okay. Yeah, because they're so hard to pinpoint to figure exactly if it really is elemental, and because if it is an elemental, there's not like a way you have to appease them. I guess there's not a way of you can't move them on or get rid of them, right? You just basically have to appease them in some way by offering them gifts and whatnot. Is that the best way to handle an elemental? Because you can't get rid of them, correct?
No,
Because
I mean they're germane to the area. I mean, and that's the thing too. I don't know what the visitor center was built over. Was it built over a stream? If it was, then you might actually be sitting on water elemental. I'm not sure. It could be as well.
I'm trying to remember. It's in North Carolina, actually, in Kenansville, um, because it's on the same property. It was a plantation. Um, and I would think, it was she's a member of the team of Raven Investigations Paranormal. So we went out there a couple of times, and I was so surprised. The visitor center's like new, and then you have the old plantation home right beside of it. Then you still have the old the houses, and then the carriage houses, and the Sears overseer's cottage is still right there. So I
Wow.
don't know. I know all the area was plantation, and they had the chicken houses and the crops or whatever back in the day. So it is very, very possible. I'll have to find out because she's actually the tour guide
Oh,
of this plantation home. So, but we've come to the conclusion that it might be, but it's more. It seems to be more active than what the plantation home is.
that's
And I know. So it's a very, very cool area. That's why I was wondering, trying to figure out how could we pinpoint exactly what it was, because why is it inside of the visitor center?
right.
Because she's seen stuff move. She's seen a black shadow figure charging at her. I mean, she's never been. I mean, I've seen videos where she was having her lunch and you could see the wrapper to her thing being actually pulled back, stuff like that. So nothing really malevolent, I guess you could say, but
Yeah.
just and we caught some a figure on the SLS camera, and it literally started crawling up the wall. So I don't know.
What?
So yeah, I mean, they've been brought up here recently. I mean, when we went to Pickens County Museum for the world's largest ghost hunt. Um, Elemental was brought into it, but again, I honestly didn't think so. I mean, I don't know because I didn't get any really definitive answers to it being that. So I'm just trying to learn more about and understand how to determine, because you have elemental thrown up here and there and whatnot. Um, I do feel like there is elemental at the visitor center because the questions I was asking and about, were you ever human, it it kind of come across that it was elemental. I don't know what type. Um,
Yes.
so that's where I just wanted to understand and how to figure, because then I had some and another investigation last time. Well, it's a animal spirit or animal elemental or spirit, whatever. So, but that Are there animal elementals or are those like earth spirit? I don't, and that's where I get really
I know
weird.
it's confusing. Well, it's confusing too because elementals can shift, so they can take on whatever body they want. So often, people will report, they love to go, let's say, hiking, and they will often see an animal in the forest. Well, that's not necessarily an elemental. It could be that they've taken the shape or the form of an animal just to kind of spy on that person, make sure that they're doing what they should be doing, that they're respecting the environment. But also, they will send things to you to let you know that they're communicating with you. So an earth elemental might send animals to say hello to you. So if you notice that you're in the forest or you're sitting in your backyard with your coffee and there's always a chipmunk around or some birds or there's some, that then usually it's the elemental that's saying, I'm here. Or if you're
Uh,
at the beach, let's say, um, and it's a quiet time and you're I don't know, you're just kind of meditating and looking out over the waves, they may send something to you. They might blow sand over your feet when there's no wind around. They might let you know they know that you're there and that they're okay with that. So there are different ways that they can talk to you and let you know that you're seen in their environment. So yeah, sometimes they can shapeshift and they can become other things. So you've got to be really aware, like a fire elemental. They call them salamanders. So often people will say, it's interesting because when I'm somewhere in the desert, I'm lighting my bonfire. We had somebody reach out to us. It was really interesting. They like to light fires every night. The northern area, they love their bonfires. And he said, I always see animals around me, so I always think, okay, I'm doing this. I'm doing it right. But they often see things in the fire. And we talk about pareidolia, right? We talk about, well, your brain makes you see things that maybe aren't there. And how many pictures as a paranormal team have you gotten from people that have sent you pictures of their bonfire saying, look, there's Satan in there, right? Oh my God, but
oh
honestly,
yeah.
right? But honestly, the elementals will kind of play with you because they know and they see and they experience and they can get in your head. They understand that there is such a thing called pareidolia. They understand that maybe you're looking at a fire and you're saying, "Oh yeah, right, that's not anything." And they'll play with you and they'll send you images in the fire to let you know that this is okay. We're with you, we're here, you're doing it safely, and we appreciate it and we're glad that you're respecting us. So honestly, this field is so insane because there's so many overlapping things, right? Earth spirits, elementals, indigenous spirits, they all kind of work together. But I truly believe with elementals, when you're talking about that primordial from day one elemental spirit of everything, of earth, fire, water, I think it's all about protecting the space, protecting our earth, and remembering that it's all about balance. And when the balance is upset, I think they get annoyed. They let us know and they work together with the spirits and with the indigenous spirits of the land, of the place, of the water, of the air to kind of, try and bring back some balance. And sometimes they can do that in very awful ways. And we can interpret that as, oh my gosh, look at all the floods, look at all the hurricanes, look at all the tornadoes, look at all of these things that are happening. But is that influence by an elemental or a group of elementals that are trying to say, we're not in balance anymore, so we've got to do something about this? I don't know. I mean, who knows?
You said something that really caught my attention. You're talking about sitting in the backyard and something. This may not have anything to do with elementals, but in the last couple months, there has been one stray rabbit staying in my yard. Just one.
Wow.
I've been out here for over 2 years, not seen. We're in a development, a brand new development. No trees, no nothing. I mean, literally maybe a couple palm trees, and this one little rabbit. He'll just sit. He's been out
Interesting.
front. He's been outside, but he's always in my yard, and it's always at night. And where'd he come from? So I don't know if it's just a fluke thing, but he's always in my yard. It's always at night, and I'm even throwing some lettuce out there for him or whatever. He'll just sit there. He'll just sit there. His little nose. So I don't understand. I mean, we have nothing. I don't even see. Just because, like I said, I've been here 2 years now. No trees, retention ponds, but no other little rabbits, no bunnies, no mommy, daddy. So I don't know where he come from and why he likes my little land, but
I think that's a sign that obviously it feels comfortable in your environment, and that speaks volumes. I mean, maybe it is something that's sent to you. Maybe it was sent to you by the earth elemental backyard saying, you know what, lady, you're doing a good job. Keep doing it.
I don't do anything to my yard though. But yeah, I just when you said that, I thought, maybe she'll know why that little random rabbit just comes over and visits all the time. But he's cute as a button, and he's always in my yard. I never see him. He just vanishes here and then he's just gone. But so I don't know. But yeah, so did you have that makes more sense now? You kind of like you said, they kind of all overlap one another. But we have the earth, wind, so that's the basis of them. And then of course you can get more deeper. Just kind of want to figure out, like if sometimes if I do come across one of these, that how we can actually communicate to figure out, is this an elemental, and if they actually can speak to us and communicate. Obviously, they're intelligent, and how they come across. So the only thing you can do would just be to, like you said, appease them, right? So if this is particular elemental in so-called the visitor center, if that's what it comes out to be, just whatever offering she needs to make to keep it appeased, right?
I think so too. And I think with elementals, you really have to pay attention to how you feel when you're in their presence. What part of your body or your mind does it affect? For example, if it's a fire elemental, you hear about musicians and artists that are like fueled by passion, right? They have the fire within them to create. They're very influenced by a fire elemental. So if you're passionate or you're more creative or anything like that, it could very well be a fire elemental. But if emotional and you want to cry all the time, it could very well be a water elemental. It's that kind of thing. Pay attention to how you feel, because earth ones will play with your digestive system a lot. They'll play with, gosh, I feel really ill all of a sudden, or man, do
Mm-hmm.
I ever have to go to the room, that kind of thing. They'll play with you that way. So pay attention to how you feel inside, because they really do influence our emotional state, our physical, our mental, all of that, our emotional state. So, write down some notes, keep notes, and try and figure out which you believe elemental could be in there, because a visitor center, gosh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of historic stuff. From actually a lot of it came from the plantation home. Some of it came from the sword factory. Is so, and I'm not really sure what
Wow.
was there, like I said before, but it is all plantation land. I'll have her to do some more digging just to find out. But I guess just really just trying to understand, get a grasp on exactly, because obviously elementals can be anywhere. They don't have to be. They can be in the city. They can be in development. Sounds like it doesn't just have to be old ancient forest land, or because that's how I was picturing it. Being in this old historic, old forest, out in the middle of the woods, and that's where elementals were. But obviously, that's not the case.
Not
Um,
necessarily, because you talk about elementals being at the top of mountains or whatever. But
mhm.
you know what? If you've got a little hill that the kids play on and at night there's no kids there, an elemental might want to live at the top of the hill. So absolutely, it doesn't have to be in an untouched location.
And generally, elementals are in sacred areas or just protected? Because it's not like you have elemental out here right now or elemental, so what do they, is it like sacred land? How can you really know? I guess you understand what I'm saying.
I
Does it have to be
do.
sacred?
I do. What I think there are elemental protectors in sacred lands, for example, and a sacred land or protected land could also be a cemetery, because we've run into a lot of what I call guardian spirits in places like cemeteries. So they could be the elementals that are protecting that sacred space. Yeah, I do believe that. I think that you have protectorate elementals in sacred spaces, but I do think that elementals can live absolutely anywhere. I mean, for example, anytime you match, the fire elemental is there. You couldn't light a match without the elemental saying it was okay. So when you look at the implications of that too, it's like, well, you could be in the middle of your house lighting a match. You could be in the middle of a forest lighting a match. Yeah, so the elementals are always there. So no, they're not necessarily only in sacred spaces, but they're everywhere, absolutely everywhere.
I think I follow you. Okay, I gotcha. That is making sense. It's just like I said, it's a lot to gather together, but that helps out a whole lot. So at least understanding, we could go really deep, I'm sure, into all the little, so many, the water spirits. I mean, the with the Native American spirits, like you said, the skinwalkers. But this at least gives us some kind of idea, and I'm going to try to follow through with that investigation and see what we can come up with, and I'll definitely let you know. But is there anything else that you would like to leave out there to our viewers, and maybe let them know in case they do come across one of these elemental spirits?
Well, basically, I think the lesson with elemental spirits is that they're everywhere. They're kind of watching, and just do you need to do, which is to respect. I mean, anytime you're doing a paranormal investigation, it's the same as walking in a forest. It's the same as, bathing in a river. It's the same as climbing a mountain or lighting a fire. Just be respectful of where you are. Understand that there are spirits and voices and all kinds of things that are surrounding you, and you need to respect them, to acknowledge them. Don't provoke, don't do anything that would upset them, and just be respectful and leave it the way that you found it. I think that's a really important lesson.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that. Don't make a mess and just leave it. You need to be respectful of wherever you go to investigate. I don't care if it's a private residence, anywhere. Be respectful. That's exactly right. Well, thank you so much, Lynda. This has been really wonderful and have learned a whole lot. And I do thank you so much for taking the time to be on Beyond the Raven. So you have a very good night. Thank you for watching this week's episode of Beyond the Raven. Don't miss next week's episode when we'll be talking with Brandon Cooper and Katie Stafford from Supernatural Inc. Paranormal and Technologies. So until then, stay safe and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.
Travis feature, all